Who let this black servant sit at our table? Chairman Wei Jianhong spoke in Mandarin, loud, disgusted. $2.1 billion on the line, and America sends us a black woman playing CEO. His deputy Liu Peng laughed. She probably cleaned this boardroom yesterday. Look at her skin. Her kind should be mopping floors, not touching contracts worth more than her entire bloodline. Wei leaned back. My father always said, you can dress a servant in silk, but black skin doesn't belong in a CEO chair. Simone Morrison sat perfectly still. Chairman Wei, welcome. Her voice stayed soft, humble. Is there anything I can get for you? Wei smirked at his deputy. See? The servant knows her role. They laughed. She lowered her eyes, said nothing. But her hand found the worn leather book hidden beneath the table. What happened next would cost Wei everything. 72 hours before that moment, Simone Morrison wasn't CEO of anything. She was Chief Strategy Officer, respected, capable, invisible. The kind of black woman who made herself small in meetings, who let white men take credit for her ideas, who survived corporate America by never threatening anyone's ego. She had learned the rules early. Speak last, smile often, never outshine the people who sign your paycheck. It worked. She climbed higher than her mother ever dreamed, higher than her grandmother could have imagined. But she was still invisible. Then the phone call came. Richard Hartley, CEO of Whitfield Crane Industries, had collapsed in his home gym. Massive stroke. Doctors said he might never wake up. The emergency board meeting started within the hour. Jonathan Whitfield stood at the head of the conference room. 62 years old, silver-haired, the chairman who built this company from a small machine shop into an aerospace giant. His voice was steady, but his hands betrayed him. In 72 hours, a Chinese delegation arrives to sign a $2.1 billion joint venture. They expect to meet our CEO. He paused. We no longer have one. Silence crashed through the room like broken glass. The CFO cleared his throat. We should postpone. Impossible. Whitfield shook his head. Huasheng Global has 3 other American companies waiting in line. If we delay, we lose the deal. 4,000 jobs disappear, factories close, families destroyed. He looked around the table. I need solutions, not problems. Derek Crawford straightened his tie. VP of International Relations, white, polished, the kind of man who practiced handshakes in mirrors. I can lead the negotiations, he offered. Voice smooth as butter. I have relationships with the delegation. I speak some Mandarin. Enough to get by. Several board members nodded. Derek looked like a CEO. Sounded like one. Had the right jawline, the right handshake, the right skin color. He was perfect. But Whitfield wasn't looking at Derek. His eyes had drifted to the back of the room. Simone Morrison sat in the corner, reviewing documents, making notes, silent as always. 3 years ago, Whitfield had watched her save a $400 million contract in Shanghai. The translator was struggling with technical terms. Simone leaned over and whispered corrections. Perfect Mandarin, regional dialect, flawless. He never mentioned it, never asked, until now. Simone. She looked up, surprised that anyone noticed her. You speak Mandarin, don't you? The room turned. Derek's smile froze on his face. Yes, sir, I do. How well? A pause. She was calculating, deciding how much to reveal. Native-level fluent, including regional dialects. Silence. Whitfield nodded slowly. Then you're our new interim CEO, effective immediately. The room erupted, voices overlapping, objections flying. Derek's protest died in his throat. His phone was already in his hand under the table. Simone met Whitfield's eyes. Something unspoken passed between them. "Sir, I need to tell you something first. In private. My office. 10 minutes. She gathered her things, walked past Derek without looking at him. He watched her go, jaw tight, fingers typing furiously. What Simone was about to reveal would change everything, and Derek Crawford was about to make the biggest mistake of his life. Whitfield's office had windows on 3 sides. Chicago spread below like a circuit board of lights. Millions of lives, millions of stories, all of them unaware of what was about to happen in this room. Simone closed the door. Her posture changed. No longer the invisible strategist. Something heavier now, something that had been waiting decades to surface. "Before I accept this role, you need to know something." She sat across from him. "This deal is personal for me. More personal than you can imagine." Whitfield raised an eyebrow. "Personal, how?" He slid a tablet across the desk. A video of Chairman Wei discussing technical specifications in Mandarin. "Our translators gave us a version. I want yours. Tell me what he's really saying." Simone watched the video once. Her eyes narrowed at the 2-minute mark. She played it again, paused at specific moments, studied his gestures, his tone, the way his mouth formed certain words. Then she translated, word for word, without notes. The official translation is accurate for the first 90 seconds, standard business talk. But at 2 minutes 14 seconds, he switches to Qingdao dialect, working-class accent from the shipyards. She pointed at the screen. He tells his deputy that our profit-sharing model is laughably American. He says we're naive, soft. He plans to renegotiate everything after we sign. Once we're locked in. Once we can't walk away. Whitfield leaned forward. At 3:45, that hand motion, a flick of the wrist. That's old money dismissal. It means he thinks we're beneath serious consideration. Easy marks. She sat back. Your certified translator missed all of that because he learned Mandarin in a Beijing classroom. Chairman Wei learned it in the shipyards his father built. Different language entirely. Whitfield was silent for a long moment. Where did you learn it? The question hung in the air like smoke. Simone's hand drifted to her bag, to the worn leather book inside. I learned it from my grandmother, Loretta Morrison. And where did she learn it? A long pause. Simone was opening a door she'd kept locked for 30 years, a door that led to pain, to rage, to a wound that never healed. In the house of Wei Jianhong's father, she was their servant, here in Chicago, 50 years ago. And Whitfield's eyes widened. You knew the Wei family? My grandmother did. Wei Sr. owned textile factories here in the 70s, brought workers from China, hired local black women as domestic help, cheap labor, invisible labor. She took a breath. My grandmother cleaned their toilets, washed their dishes, raised their children when the parents couldn't be bothered, including a boy named Jianhong. He was 8 years old. The same Wei Jianhong coming here in 72 hours? The same man. Simone's voice hardened. Though he won't remember. To him, my grandmother was just another black servant. A face without a name, a body without a story. He has no idea that in 72 hours he'll be sitting across from her granddaughter. Dad. Whitfield stood, walked to the window, processing. What happened to her? She committed an unforgivable sin. Simone's voice was steady, but her hands weren't. She learned Mandarin. Every night, after the family slept, she crept down to the study. An old scholar named Mr. Huang waited there. He was hired to tutor the Wei children. But he saw something in my grandmother, intelligence, hunger, a mind sharper than any of his wealthy students. He taught her for free, in secret, for 2 years. She paused. One evening, Wei Sr. came home early, found her reading aloud in Mandarin, fluid, beautiful, nearly perfect. His face twisted with rage. Simone pulled the leather book from her bag, set it on Whitfield's desk. He called her an animal trying to wear human clothes, a servant reaching above her station. He said things I won't repeat. Then he fired her, on the spot. No severance, no reference. Middle of a Chicago winter. 8-year-old Jian Hong watched from the doorway, eyes wide, silent. He said nothing, did nothing. She touched the cracked leather. Mr. Huang pressed this phrasebook into her hands as she left. Inside the cover, he wrote, "Language is freedom. May you never be silent when it matters." Your grandmother kept this? She kept learning. Every day, every night. She taught my mother. My mother taught me. 3 generations of black women, all because one man said we didn't deserve to speak his language. Whitfield studied the book, studied Simone. Does Wei Jianhong know who you are? No. Simone shook her head. He has no idea. Whitfield walked back to his desk, sat down heavily. The board will fight this appointment. Derek has allies. They'll say you don't have the right profile. I know what they'll say. I don't care what they say. He met her eyes. I've waited 20 years to see the Wei family humbled. 20 years. Wei Sr. approached me when I was building this company. Offered $50 million. But he had one condition. Fire a black woman on my executive team. Said she made his associates uncomfortable. Simone's jaw tightened. What did you do? Told him to take his money and leave my office. Whitfield extended his hand. That woman became my COO, retired with full honors. Simone took his hand. I won't tell you how to run this negotiation, but if you want to settle an old debt while protecting this company, I won't stop you. Simone picked up the phrase book. My grandmother died when I was 19. Her last words were, "One day, baby, you'll sit in a room with people like them. When that day comes, don't you dare be silent." She stood. I've waited 30 years for that room. It's 72 hours away. Chicago, 1973. The Wei Mansion on Lakeshore Drive. Marble floors polished to mirrors. Silk curtains imported from Shanghai. More money in one house than Loretta Morrison would see in 10 lifetimes. She was 32 years old, black, poor, invisible. Every morning she took 2 buses from the south side, arrived before dawn, left after dark. In between, she scrubbed and cooked and cleaned and smiled and pretended not to exist. She cleaned their toilets, washed their silk sheets, raised their children when the parents were too busy with business dinners and society parties. Young Jianhong was 8, lonely in that cold mansion. He followed Loretta everywhere. She told him stories, taught him to tie his shoes, held him when he had nightmares. She was the warmest person in his life. But Loretta had a secret. Every night, after the family slept, she crept down to the study. Mr. Huang waited there. The elderly tutor hired to teach the Wei children. 70 years old, eyes bright with knowledge, heart heavy with what he'd seen in his long life. He saw something in Loretta that no one else bothered to look for. Brilliance. You have a gift, he told her. A mind sharper than any of my official students. If you had been born in a different skin, in a different country, you would have been a scholar. She practiced Mandarin while scrubbing floors, conjugated verbs while washing dishes, memorized characters while folding laundry. She dreamed of a different life, a life where someone like her could be heard. One evening, Wei Sr. came home early. He heard voices in the study, found Loretta reading aloud in Mandarin, fluid, beautiful, nearly perfect. His face twisted with rage. What is this? He stepped into the room. An animal trying to speak like a human? Loretta stood, lowered her eyes. Sir, I was only— Silence. He moved closer. You clean my toilets. You scrub my floors. You exist to serve, not to learn, not to speak, not to pretend you are anything more than what your black skin makes you. Mr. Huang tried to intervene. Sir, she meant no disrespect. And you. Wei Sr. turned on him. Teaching a servant? You're fired too. He pointed at Loretta. Servants don't need to speak the language of their masters. Remember your place. Now get out. Take nothing. 8-year-old Jian Hong watched from the doorway, eyes wide, silent, afraid. He said nothing, did nothing. Loretta walked out into the Chicago winter, nothing but the clothes on her back. At the door, Mr. Huang pressed a leather phrase book into her frozen hands. Inside the cover, his handwriting. For Loretta, language is freedom. May you never be silent when it matters. She never saw him again. He returned to China, died 10 years later. But Loretta never stopped learning. She taught her daughter. Her daughter taught Simone. 3 generations of women. Passing down a weapon forged in humiliation. 50 years later, that weapon was about to speak. 48 hours before signing. O'Hare International Airport, private terminal. Chairman Wei Jianhong stepped off the jet like he owned the runway. Designer suit worth more than most cars. Watch worth more than most houses. The arrogance of a man who had never heard the word no and meant it. His delegation followed. Deputy Chairman Liu Peng, Legal Counsel Madame Xu Mei. 3 assistants trained to laugh at his jokes and agree with his opinions. Derek Crawford was there to greet them. He'd insisted on being present. For continuity, he said. For betrayal, Simone knew. She stood behind the welcome committee, observing, listening, invisible, just like her grandmother. Wei's eyes passed over Simone without stopping. No recognition, no interest. Why would there be? To him, black servants all looked the same. Interchangeable, forgettable, beneath notice. He turned to Liu Peng, spoke in Mandarin, casual, careless. That's the new CEO? A black woman? He snorted. The Americans have truly lost their minds. Their country is collapsing. Liu Peng nodded. At least your father knew how to keep people like her in their proper place. Exactly. In China, we understand hierarchy. Some people lead, some people serve. This one forgot which category she belongs to. Madame Zhu's expression flickered. A microsecond of discomfort, then neutral again. Simone stepped forward, extended her hand. Warm smile. Welcome to Chicago, Chairman Wei. I hope your flight was pleasant. Wei shook her hand like he was touching something dirty. Adequate, he said through the interpreter. In Mandarin, to Liu Peng, her handshake is weak, like her people. This deal is going to be easier than I thought. Simone kept smiling. He had no idea she understood every word. That night, Derek Crawford sat in a hotel bar with Liu Peng. This wasn't their first meeting. Derek had been on Hua Sheng's payroll for 18 months, $2.3 million in a Cayman Islands account, in exchange for information. Access. Betrayal. He slid an envelope across the table. Everything you need to know about Simone Morrison. Liu Peng opened it. His eyebrows rose. She speaks Mandarin? Native level. She's been hiding it for years. Derek sipped his whiskey. Overheard her on a call 3 years ago. Never told anyone. Saved it for the right moment. Liu Peng smiled. Chairman Wei will find this very interesting. Later that night, Wei's hotel suite, Liu Peng delivered the news. Wei listened, swirled his whiskey, then laughed. So the black servant speaks our language. Interesting. Should we be more careful, Chairman? No. Wei shook his head. This is useful. If she understands us, we can provoke her, make her react emotionally. Then we claim she was spying on private conversations. We'll have leverage to renegotiate everything. And if she doesn't react, then we sign, take control, and push her out within a year. He raised his glass. Either way, the Wei family wins, just like my father always won. He drank. To the old ways, the right ways. Simone sat alone in her hotel room. Her phone buzzed. A message from Whitfield's security team. They'd intercepted communications between Derek's phone and a Huasheng server. The encryption was weak. Amateur hour. She read the summary. Her blood ran cold. Derek was a traitor. And Wei knew she spoke Mandarin. They were setting a trap. She stared at her grandmother's phrase book, traced the worn leather with her fingertips. What would you do, Grandma? The answer came clearly, as if Loretta was sitting beside her. Let them think they're winning. Let them say everything they truly believe. Let them hang themselves with their own words. Then take everything. Deck. Simone picked up her phone, texted Whitfield. We have a problem, and an opportunity. His reply came in seconds. Tell me everything. She started typing. Somewhere in the Chicago night, a trap was being set, but the trappers had no idea they were the prey. The servant's granddaughter was coming, and she was bringing 50 years of silence with her. 36 hours before signing. The emergency board meeting was a battlefield disguised as a conference room. Harrison Crane III led the opposition, grandson of the company founder, the kind of man who confused inheritance with intelligence and arrogance with leadership. Jonathan, with all due respect. He didn't have any respect, never did. Sending her to lead negotiations with a Chinese delegation is a mistake. Whitfield's voice was ice. What about it, Harrison? They're traditional, hierarchical. They'll expect someone who looks the part. You mean someone who looks like Derek? Silence. Or someone who looks like you. Crane's face reddened. I'm simply pointing out cultural considerations. The decision is final. Simone leads. End of discussion. The meeting ended, but Crane wasn't finished. He found Derek in the hallway, pulled him aside. Keep me informed. If she fails, I want to know before Whitfield does. Derek smiled, the smile of a man holding cards no one knew about. Oh, she'll fail. I guarantee it. Simone met with Whitfield privately. She told him about Derek, about the intercepted communications, about the trap being set. Whitfield's face darkened like a storm rolling in. You're certain? Certain enough. But if we move on him now, we tip our hand. He runs to Wei. They adjust their plan. We lose the advantage. What do you want to do? Simone's eyes were steady, cold, focused. I don't speak Mandarin for the next 36 hours. Not a word. Not a hint. Nothing. Let Wei think Derek's information was wrong. Let him get comfortable. Let him say things he would never say if he thought I understood. And then? On signing day, when his guard is completely down, when he's revealed exactly who he is, she touched the phrase book. I answer him, in his father's dialect, and I show him what servants really learn when masters aren't watching. That evening, Simone found Derek in a hallway. She cornered him, voice low, controlled. Derek, I know you wanted this position. I know you think you deserved it. He forced a smile, smooth, practiced. I'm just here to support the team, Simone. Good. Then support the team. Stay in your lane. She stepped closer, close enough to see the sweat forming on his forehead. And Derek? I know you've been talking to people you shouldn't. I don't know everything yet. She paused. But I will. His smile faltered. Just for a second. Long enough. If I find out you've done anything to compromise this company, I will end your career in ways you can't imagine. She walked away. Derek watched her go, then pulled out his phone. A text to Liu Peng. She suspects something. Accelerate the plan. That night, Simone sat alone with the contracts, page by page, clause by clause, looking for the trap she knew was there. She found it in Appendix 7, Section 3, buried in technical language designed to confuse, a clause allowing Huasheng to renegotiate profit sharing after 18 months, unilaterally, without consent, hidden, intentional, a time bomb waiting to explode. They were planning to steal the company from the start. She photographed everything, sent it to Whitfield. Then she opened her grandmother's phrasebook, read her favorite passage aloud in Mandarin, the one Loretta used to recite while washing dishes. I am not afraid. I am ready. Simone didn't know it yet, but Derek's accelerated plan wasn't just about contracts. It was about her. In 12 hours, she would be framed for corporate espionage, suspended, humiliated, walked out of the building like a criminal, just like her grandmother 50 years ago. History was about to repeat itself. But history had never met Simone Morrison, and history had never seen what happens when a servant's granddaughter refuses to stay silent. 12 hours before signing, 6 in the morning. Simone's phone exploded her awake. Whitfield's voice was tight, urgent. Get to the office, now, don't talk to anyone. She arrived to find security waiting at the elevator. They escorted her to the boardroom, like a prisoner, like a criminal. Inside, Harrison Crane III, 3 board members, and Derek Crawford, looking grave, concerned, sad. The performance of his life. On the screen behind them, emails, phone records, bank statements, all showing that Simone Morrison had been selling company secrets to a competitor. $500,000 in an offshore account. Her name on everything. The evidence was perfect, detailed, damning, and completely fabricated. Crane spoke first, enjoying every word. Ms. Morrison, would you like to explain these transactions? Simone's mind raced. This was Derek's work, the accelerated plan. These documents are forged. I've never seen that account. The evidence speaks for itself. Crane cut her off. Given the severity, the board moves to suspend Ms. Morrison pending investigation. She looked at Whitfield. His hands were tied. If he defended her now, he looked complicit, part of the conspiracy. But his eyes met hers. A message she could read clearly. I believe you. Play along. I'm working on something. Security took her badge. They escorted her through the office, past colleagues who suddenly couldn't meet her eyes, past the assistants she'd mentored, past Derek, who shook his head in theatrical sadness. Such a shame. I warned them she wasn't ready for this level. The elevator doors closed on her face. She was walked out the front entrance, the same way her grandmother was walked out of the Way Mansion 50 years ago. Same city, same humiliation, same silence, history repeating. So, Simone sat in her car. Parking garage, alone. The concrete walls pressed in, cold, gray, suffocating. She pulled out the phrasebook, opened it to the inscription. May you never be silent when it matters. Her hands shook. Tears threatened to fall. Is this how it ends? 50 years later, the same story? Grandmother walked out in winter. Granddaughter walked out in shame. Both destroyed by the same family. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. A text. 3rd floor, east stairwell. Now. Come alone. X. Madame Shu. It could be another trap. Another humiliation waiting, but Simone had nothing left to lose. She got out of the car. This was the darkest moment. The moment when most people give up. When the powerful win because they always win. When servants remember their place and stay there. But Simone Morrison wasn't most people. She was Loretta's granddaughter. And Loretta never gave up. Not when Way Sr. fired her. Not when she walked into the Chicago winter with nothing. Not when she spent 30 years teaching her family a language she was told she didn't deserve to speak. Simone straightened her back, dried her eyes, walked toward the stairwell. Whatever waited there, she would face it. Because servants have long memories. And this servant's granddaughter was just getting started. The stairwell was cold, concrete, echoing. Madame Jumet stood waiting. She looked different than in the boardroom. Tired, conflicted, human. Ms. Morrison, we don't have much time. Simone kept her distance. Guard up. Why are you helping me? You work for Way. Xu was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke. My mother was a factory worker in Shenzhen. She cleaned floors in a textile factory. A factory owned by Way Sr. Simone went still. When she got sick, she asked for medical leave. 3 days. Just 3 days to see a doctor. They fired her instead. Said she was replaceable. Xu's voice cracked. Just barely. She died 3 months later. I was 15. I watched her die in a room with no heat because we couldn't afford the bills. 2 women stood in that cold stairwell. 2 daughters of women destroyed by the same family. 50 years and 2 continents apart. The same story. Xu continued. I spent 20 years working my way up. Law school, corporate positions, climbing, always climbing, telling myself Wei Jianhong was different from his father. He's not. No. Xu shook her head. He's not. I've heard how he talks about people when he thinks no one important is listening. About workers, about women, about people like you and me. She pulled out a USB drive. This contains the original communications between Derek Crawford and Liu Peng, payment records, proof that Derek fabricated the evidence against you. Everything. Simone took the drive. Why give this to me? Because I'm tired of watching the children of powerful men destroy the children of servants. Because my mother deserved better. Because your grandmother deserved better. Xu's eyes burned. And because I want to see Wei Jianhong's face when he realizes he's lost. When he realizes that the women he dismissed as nothing were the ones who destroyed him. How do I get back in tomorrow? Xu explained. Whitfield will have this evidence by morning. He'll clear you, quietly. No announcement. You walk into that boardroom uninvited. Derek won't expect it. Wei won't expect it. No one will. And then, Xu's eyes met hers. Then you do what your grandmother never got to do. You speak, in his language, in his father's dialect. You show him that the servants were always listening. Simone held the USB drive in one hand, the phrasebook in the other. My grandmother used to say, let the fool speak, the truth will answer. Tomorrow Wei Jianhong will speak, and I will answer. That night, Whitfield reviewed the USB drive at his home. His face cycled through emotions, shock, anger, cold determination. He called his head of security. I need everything on Derek Crawford, every email, every call, every meeting for the past 2 years. A pause. And Harrison Crane. I want to know exactly what he's been whispering to the Chinese delegation. Every word. By midnight, he had enough evidence to destroy them both. He texted Simone one word. Ready. She replied. Always. Somewhere in Chicago, a trap waited. But the trappers had become the trapped. Wei thought he was hunting a helpless black woman. Derek thought he was about to become wealthy beyond his dreams. Crane thought he was about to take control of the board. None of them understood what they were facing. Simone Morrison wasn't just a CEO. She was the end of a 50-year story. The final chapter her grandmother never got to write. And in 12 hours, she would walk into that boardroom and finish it. Not with anger, not with violence. With 12 words in Mandarin, spoken in the dialect that Wei's father had forbidden her grandmother to learn. The servants had long memories, and tomorrow, those memories would finally speak. 3 in the morning, 6 hours before signing, Whitfield's home, back entrance. No one could know Simone was there. Whitfield poured 2 glasses of whiskey. His hands were steady now, the hands of a man ready for war. The board will reinstate you at 7, quietly. Derek will be arrested after the meeting. I don't want to tip him off before you have your moment. And Crane? His resignation letter is already drafted. He just doesn't know it yet. His career ends tomorrow. Whitfield sat down, hesitated, something heavy on his mind. I need to tell you something about why I chose you for this. Simone waited. 23 years ago, Wei Sr. approached me, offered $50 million to help build this company. I needed that money desperately. We were weeks from bankruptcy. What happened? He had one condition. Whitfield's jaw tightened. Fire a black woman on my executive team. She made his associates uncomfortable, he said. They didn't like taking meetings with her. Simone's hands curled into fists. What did you do? Told him to take his money and leave my office. Walked him to the door personally. He met her eyes. That woman became my COO. She built half of what this company is today. She retired with full honors and a pension that'll keep her comfortable until she's 100. And Wei Sr.? Never spoke to him again, but I never forgot. I've been waiting 23 years for another chance at that family. He leaned forward. And here you are. He stood, walked to his desk, opened a drawer, pulled out an old photograph, black and white, faded with age. A young black woman standing outside a mansion in winter, servant's uniform, thin coat against the cold, but standing tall, proud, unbroken. Found this in the Chicago Tribune Archives, 1974, article about workers' rights in wealthy households. Someone had photographed the servants leaving work. Simone took the photograph. Her breath caught in her throat. It was Loretta, her grandmother. Young, beautiful. On the back, in faded handwriting, they can take my job. They cannot take my dignity. Tears stung Simone's eyes. Chint. Whitfield placed his hand on her shoulder. Tomorrow, you're not just representing this company. You're representing every person who was ever told they were just the help. Every cleaner, every servant, every invisible person who was smarter than their masters and couldn't show it. Your grandmother started something she couldn't finish. The world wouldn't let her. But you can finish it. You will finish it. He stepped back. Make them remember her name. Make them remember that servants have children and grandchildren and long, long memories. Simone held the photograph in one hand, the phrase book in the other, 2 pieces of the same story, 50 years apart. I will. She left Whitfield's house as dawn approached. Chicago spread before her, the city where her grandmother suffered, the city where Simone would triumph. Somewhere out there was the building where Loretta learned in secret, the mansion where she was humiliated, the street where she walked into the winter with nothing. In 6 hours, her granddaughter would walk into a boardroom and speak the words Loretta never got to say. Simone opened the phrase book one more time. Read the inscription. Language is freedom. May you never be silent when it matters. She spoke aloud to the empty car, to the city, to the ghost of her grandmother. I won't be silent, Grandma. Not today. Not ever again. 3 hours before signing. Dawn breaking over Lake Michigan. Gold and pink light spreading across gray water. Simone stood on her hotel rooftop, the city glowing beneath her like embers waiting to catch fire. She couldn't sleep. Didn't want to. This was the moment before the moment. The last breath before the dive. The calm before everything changed. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. An elderly woman's voice. Fragile. Trembling. Speaking in Mandarin. Is this Simone? Loretta's granddaughter? Simone's heart stopped. Who is this? My name is Huang Mei Lin. My father was Mr. Huang, the man who taught your grandmother to read, the man who gave her the book. The tutor's daughter, still alive after all these years. Simone's voice broke. How did you find me? Madame Zhu called me last night, said today was the day, said you needed to know you're not alone, that you've never been alone. The old woman continued. Her voice grew stronger. My father never forgot Loretta. He talked about her until the day he died, said she was the brightest student he ever taught in 60 years of teaching, said she would have been a professor, a scholar, a leader, if the world had let her. He carried the guilt of that night until his last breath. He wished he had done more, said more, fought harder. Simone was crying now, silent tears in the dawn light. Before my father died, he asked me to find Loretta's family someday, to deliver a message he never got to say. What message? He said, the student has become the master. Now teach them what silence really costs. Maylin's voice softened. You're not just fighting for yourself today, child. You're fighting for every servant who learned in secret, every woman who was told to stay silent, every student my father believed in but couldn't protect. You're fighting for my father, for your grandmother, for my mother, for Shu's mother, for all the invisible people who built empires for masters who never learned their names. Win, Simone. Win for all of us. The line went dead. Simone stood alone on the rooftop, the phrase book in one hand, the photograph in the other. Loretta, Mr. Huang, Mei Lin, Shu's mother, her own mother, all of them watching, all of them waiting, all of them with her. She spoke aloud, to the wind, to the rising sun, to the ghosts. I will not be silent, grandmother. I will speak for you, for all of you. Today, the servants answer. The sun rose higher over Lake Michigan, golden light on gray water. A new day, the last day of Wei Jianhong's empire. Simone checked her watch. 3 hours. She went inside to get ready. Navy suit, power cut, impeccable. She tucked the phrase book into her jacket, slipped the photograph into her pocket, looked at herself in the mirror. A black woman in a suit, a servant's granddaughter, a CEO. All three at once. And today, all three would speak. 9 in the morning. The 40th floor. The same boardroom from the beginning of this story. Contracts ready, pens waiting, everyone in position. Chairman Wei Jianhong sat at one end of the table, confident, triumphant. He'd already won in his mind. The black woman was destroyed. The deal was his. Derek Crawford sat where Simone should have been, named acting lead for the signing, practically glowing with stolen victory, already spending his Cayman Islands money in his head. Liu Peng reviewed documents, made notes, played his part. Madame Shu sat quietly at the far end, her phone in her pocket, recording everything. Jonathan Whitfield sat at the side, looking defeated, shoulders slumped, playing his part perfectly. Harrison Crane III smirked from the corner, already planning his takeover. Security stood at the doors. Everything according to Wei's plan. Wei made his speech through the interpreter. Today marks a historic partnership. East meets West. We are pleased that recent complications have been resolved appropriately. Then he turned to Liu Peng, spoke in Mandarin, casual, careless, arrogant. The black woman is finished. Derek did excellent work. My father always said Americans are easy to manipulate, soft, sentimental, stupid. Liu Peng nodded. Wei laughed. Wei, 50 years ago, my father showed a black servant her place. Threw her into the street like garbage. Today I've done the same to her granddaughter. The Wei family always wins. Always. Derek didn't understand a word. He just smiled. Thought he was about to become rich. Wei picked up his pen. Let's make history. The boardroom doors slammed open. Simone Morrison walked in. Navy suit, power cut, impeccable. In her hand, the leather phrase book. The photograph of Loretta. Every head turned. Security moved to stop her. Whitfield stood. His voice cut through the chaos. Let her through. Crane sputtered. She was suspended. She has no right. Reinstated. Whitfield's voice was ice. 20 minutes ago, along with evidence that Derek Crawford has been committing corporate espionage for 18 months. Derek's face went white. Simone walked to the head of the table. Her heels clicked on marble. Each step a heartbeat. Each step a year of waiting. 50 years of silence walking toward its end. She stopped at the head of the table, stood tall, unafraid. Chairman Wei, before you sign, there are some matters to address. Wei forced a smile, condescending, amused. Ms. Morrison, I'm sorry for your difficulties, but this meeting is for authorized executives only. Perhaps you can wait outside until we're finished. To Liu Peng, in Mandarin, she's desperate, pathetic. Let her speak. It changes nothing. Simone opened her folder. Derek Crawford. Derek's head snapped up. 18 months ago, you opened an account in the Cayman Islands. Account number ending in 7742. That's ridiculous. Since then, you've received $2.3 million from a Huasheng subsidiary. In exchange, you provided confidential documents, sabotaged internal candidates, and fabricated evidence to frame me for crimes I didn't commit. She slid papers across the table. Bank records, emails, communications, all verified. She looked at him. Would you like to explain them to the board, or should I continue? Derek tried to run. Security was faster. The room erupted into chaos. Crane was sputtering. Liu Peng was frozen. Board members were shouting. Wei tried to salvage the situation. Smooth, professional. This is most unfortunate. Mr. Crawford clearly acted alone. A rogue employee. This doesn't affect our partnership. Simone turned to face him directly. I'm not finished, Chairman Wei. She placed the leather phrase book on the table, gently, deliberately. Do you recognize this book? Wei frowned. Should I? This belonged to a woman named Loretta Morrison. Simone's voice was steady, clear. Every word chosen with precision. In 1973, she worked in your father's house, here in Chicago, Lakeshore Drive. She cleaned your floors, cooked your meals, washed your clothes, taught you how to tie your shoes. Wei's frown deepened, ancient memory stirring. Marie, a face from childhood. Warm hands, gentle voice. One night your father found her learning Mandarin. He fired her on the spot, called her an animal, said servants don't need to speak the language of their masters. Simone paused. She was my grandmother. Wei's face cycled through emotions. Recognition, shock, and then something ugly. Dismissal. He turned to Liu Peng, spoke in Mandarin. A servant's granddaughter thinks she can threaten me? Pathetic. My father was right about these people. They don't know their place. Simone looked directly at him, And she replied, in flawless Mandarin, in the Qingdao dialect, his father's accent, working class, shipyard, the language of Wei Sr.'s childhood. Chairman Wei, I understood every word. Wei's face drained of all color. Every insult at the airport, every joke in the car, every time you mentioned your father with pride, every time you called me a servant. She leaned forward. Her voice dropped, cold as Chicago winter. You called me a servant's granddaughter. You're right, I am. But my grandmother didn't just learn your language, she mastered it, she passed it down. 3 generations of black women, all of us listening, all of us waiting, all of us remembering. The room was silent, frozen. Wei couldn't move, couldn't speak. Simone continued, still in Mandarin, still in his father's dialect. Your father silenced my grandmother, threw her into the snow, told her servants don't deserve to speak. He could not silence her legacy. And today, that legacy ends your $2 billion dream. She stood straight, switched to English, voice ringing through the room. Whitfield Crane Industries will not sign this deal. We will pursue legal action against Huasheng Global for espionage, bribery, and fraud. She nodded toward Madame Zhu. Xu stood, held up her phone. Madame Xu has provided recordings of your private conversations throughout this negotiation. Your plans to renegotiate in bad faith. Your comments about this company. Your pride in your father's racism. Wei's head snapped toward Xu, betrayal burning in his eyes. Xu met his gaze, steady, unafraid. My mother cleaned floors in your father's factory in Shenzhen. She died because he wouldn't give her 3 days of medical leave. 15 years old, I watched her die. She stepped forward. Consider this her resignation letter. Simone gathered the unsigned contracts, then stopped, looked at Wei one final time, spoke in Mandarin. 12 words, clear and precise. The servant's granddaughter just ended your deal. Remember your place. She placed the phrasebook on the table. Loretta's photograph beside it. Keep these, so you never forget what servants' children become when you're not watching. She walked out, heels clicking on marble, each step an exclamation point. Behind her, chaos. Wei screaming at his team in Mandarin. Threats, accusations, panic. Derek being led away in handcuffs. His dreams of wealth turning to prison time. Crane backing toward the door, looking for an exit that didn't exist. Liu Peng gathering papers, trying to salvage nothing. Whitfield caught Simone's eye as she passed. He nodded once. The debt was paid. 50 years, 3 generations, 1 worn leather book, and 12 words that ended everything. Loretta Morrison never got to see this day, but somehow Simone knew she was watching. The servant's granddaughter had spoken, and the masters would never forget the sound of her voice. The news broke within hours. Every network, every website, every feed. Whitfield Crane executives arrested in espionage scandal. 2.1B deal collapses amid fraud allegations. Chinese chairman faces investigation after secret recordings surface. Black CEO responds to racist insults in fluent Mandarin, ends billion-dollar deal. The stock dipped briefly. 3%, then surged 12% as investors praised the company's integrity. Derek Crawford was charged with corporate espionage and fraud. His confession named Wei's instructions, every detail, every payment, every lie. When reporters asked for comment, he said only this: I underestimated her. That was my mistake. He would serve 8 years in federal prison. Harrison Crane III resigned within the hour. Quietly. Completely. His family name couldn't save him. His grandfather's legacy couldn't protect him. His career was over before lunch. Back in Shanghai, Wei Jianhong faced a reckoning of his own. Shu's recordings revealed more than the American deal. Patterns of bribery across multiple partnerships. Deception spanning a decade. Fraud in 6 countries. Huasheng's stock plummeted 40% in a single day. The board demanded his resignation. Government investigators came calling. A reporter caught him leaving headquarters for the last time. Chairman Wei, any comment on the allegations? He said nothing, but his face said everything. The son had fallen further than the father ever rose. 3 months later. Whitfield Crane announced a new joint venture, $1.8 billion with Jingshan Aerospace, a smaller Chinese consortium. Family-owned, ethical, transparent. The deal included worker protections, fair profit sharing, accountability measures that Wei would never have agreed to. At the signing ceremony, Madame Xu Mei was present. As Jingshan's new chief ethics officer, she and Simone exchanged a look across the table. 2 daughters of servants, 2 women who chose justice over silence. No words needed. The Chicago Tribune ran a feature story. The granddaughter's answer, how a 50-year-old insult ended a billion-dollar deal. Loretta Morrison's photograph went viral. The image of her standing outside the Wei mansion in winter. Servant's uniform. Thin coat, standing tall. Shared millions of times. Former servants from Wei Sr.'s businesses came forward. Stories that had been buried for decades. A pattern of abuse finally exposed. Loretta became a symbol, not of victimhood, of resistance. Simone returned to her office. Her permanent office now. CEO. Official. Permanent. On her desk, a shadow box from Whitfield. Inside, a new leather phrase book, a copy of Loretta's photograph, and a plaque with Mr. Huang's inscription, "Language is freedom. May you never be silent when it matters." A note from Whitfield. Your grandmother's book served its purpose. It belongs to Wei now, a reminder of his shame. This one is for the next generation. Her phone buzzed. A text from Xu. Your grandmother would be proud. So would my mother. So would Mr. Huang. The servants won. Simone set down the phone, looked out at Chicago, the city where Loretta suffered, the city where Simone triumphed. Somewhere out there, another little girl was learning a new language, another servant's child dreaming of more. The chain continued. A knock at the door. A young black woman from the mailroom, Keisha Williams, 22 years old, eyes bright with nervous courage. Ms. Morrison? I'm sorry to bother you. It's fine, Keisha. Come in. What is it? I read the article. About your grandmother. About everything. She paused. Gathered herself. I started Mandarin lessons last week. Simone smiled. How's it going? Hard. Really hard. Keisha laughed nervously. But my mom was a hotel cleaner, worked double shifts my whole childhood. She always said I should learn things that make people take me seriously, things they can't take away. Simone opened her desk drawer, pulled out a new phrase book, fresh leather, empty pages waiting. Then you'll need this. Keisha's eyes widened. Ms. Morrison, I can't. You can. And you will. Simone opened the cover, wrote inside, for Keisha. Language is freedom. May you never be silent when it matters. She handed it over. My grandmother gave this inscription to my mother. My mother gave it to me. Now I'm giving it to you. One day you'll give it to someone else. That's how it works. That's how we win. Keisha held the book like it was made of gold. I won't let you down, Ms. Morrison. I know you won't. Simone watched her go. The door closed. And for the first time in weeks, Simone cried. Not from sadness, not from relief, from something bigger, something that felt like hope. 6 months later. The Loretta Morrison Foundation opened its doors. 500 scholarships, Mandarin, Spanish, Arabic, French, Japanese, all for first-generation students from working-class families, children of cleaners, children of cooks, children of servants. The program tagline, "Language is freedom, open every door." The Way Mansion on Lakeshore Drive, abandoned for decades, was purchased by an anonymous donor. It became the Loretta Morrison Community Center. Language classes, job training, a permanent exhibit on the history of domestic workers in America. Simone cut the ribbon at the opening ceremony. Hundreds of people filled the lawn, young and old, all colors, all backgrounds. In the crowd, she spotted an elderly Asian woman, 82 years old, frail but smiling, Huang Mei Lin, Mr. Huang's daughter. They embraced without words. Some messages don't need translation. 1 year after the boardroom, same building, same floor, same table. Simone welcomed a new delegation, Japanese semiconductor executives. A different deal. A new partnership. Before the meeting began, one executive murmured to his colleague, in Japanese, something about unusual choice for CEO. Simone smiled, said nothing. Let them wonder. The meeting went perfectly. Professional. Successful. Respectful. As the delegation left, one executive paused at the door. Ms. Morrison, I must ask, do you speak Japanese? She answered in flawless Japanese. Only when it matters. He laughed, genuine respect in his eyes. I think we'll enjoy working with you, Ms. Morrison. He bowed. She bowed back. The game had changed, but Simone Morrison was always listening. That night, she visited the community center, walked through what used to be the Way Mansion study, the room where Loretta learned in secret, the room where she was condemned. Now it was a library, filled with language books, filled with dreams. Children's laughter echoed down the hallway. Simone sat in the corner, opened her phrasebook. Beneath Mr. Huang's inscription, she added her own line. I was not silent. Simone, 2024. She closed the book. Outside, children were laughing, learning, becoming. Loretta Morrison never got to see this day. She never saw her granddaughter in that boardroom, never heard those 12 words in Mandarin that ended a $2 billion deal. But I think she knew. When she learned in secret while scrubbing floors, when she taught her daughter despite having nothing, when she pressed that phrase book into her granddaughter's hands and whispered, "Don't you dare be silent." She was planting a seed that took 50 years to bloom. That's the thing about people who are underestimated. They don't just survive. They plant forests. So here's what I want you to do. Think about someone in your life who's invisible. The cleaner at your office who knows everyone's secrets. The server at your restaurant who remembers your order. The assistant everyone walks past without seeing. Ask them one question you've never asked. Learn one thing about them you didn't know. You might discover a grandmother who studied in secret, a mother who sacrificed everything, a story waiting 50 years to be told. Every invisible person is a seed. Water them. And if this story moved you, if you saw your grandmother in Loretta, if you saw yourself in Simone, if you saw your future in Keisha, leave a comment. Tell me, who taught you to fight? Whose words do you carry? Like this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe. Because next week, we're telling another story about someone who was invisible until they weren't. They called her a servant. She replied in their language, and everything changed.